Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be back with the incredible Piotr. He is here to talk to us today about what blood work is required, what you look for and how you see blood work. So I think we should start there and then we can get into more of the, dosing and what to expect and all of that fun stuff.
Okay. So basically, blood work, the list of the blood work, I put it together. It's very common. It's nothing extraordinary. We just put actually the markers, which I consider the most important markers on the metabolic performance, but really with a high focus on iron understanding. We refer to this as an iron study. Okay, so most of the time when people hear about iron, they look on just one or two markers. It's usually iron level by itself, and they do also hematology panel, which has some iron markers which we use, but we try to put it together, something which gives us a little bit more understanding that what iron is to relating to, okay? And if I want to go just very quick, one of the things which we start with insulin, because insulin and A1C tests are the most common diabetic and pre-diabetic or insulin resistant tests. Okay, so we try to establish the markers for those tests, which we then kind of correlate to the iron markers. That besides explaining to people, it allows me and Dr. Kristy and my colleagues to actually even understand more, because believe it or not, each time there is a little variation, and we actually discussed today some variation on people. So there is not like a one thing fits everybody. And that's what we try to train professionals to start to have a full overview and picture how you can look on iron study versus other things. Okay. So insulin, it's a marker of insulin resistance. Okay. A1C, it's a diabetic test which shows you glycation of the hemoglobin, which carry glycogen and oxygen. Another part, we also focus, it's all the iron markers. And when we start with the iron markers, we start usually with ferritin. Now, ferritin, very easily to explain, is just, we're going to refer to it as a storage protein cell, okay? Those cells are built on the needed basis by our body. They usually are in the liver, in a bone marrow. Okay, there are also some in other body parts like lungs and other organs, but the largest storage it's in the liver, and that's why liver is always the first indicator of any iron dysregulations. Okay. So ferritin is actually shows you the total iron capacity which is stored in the body. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. Years ago, ferritin was not even considered as a marker as much. Now it become a benchmark marker for many, many professionals, clinics all around the United States, but also I see this all the way from Brazil to Portugal and Europe and England. So everybody start to understand ferritin. The second one is transferrin. Transferrin is also amino acid. Now, when I refer to amino acid, but because the first video which we make, we always stress with Dr. Kristy about that people are severely protein deficient. And again, when I say protein, protein is a final product, okay? Amino acids. So everybody should understand that amino acids are the building proteins blocks. So transferrin comes from the word transfer and ferrin. That's the protein storage transfer mechanism, which takes the basically iron from ferritin and delivers to bone marrow, but also delivers to different body parts, including nervous system, to help a neurotransmission. It's very important also to develop myelin sheaths, which the cover of our nervous system, which it's very prone to be disrupted in every just about neurodegenerative problem. Okay. So transferrin is the second. Next one is TIBC, stands for total iron binding capacity. This is actually a marker which shows us a binding capacity of iron being transferred from ferritin by transferrin to the red blood cells, to the liver, with hemoglobin and myoglobin. At the same time, this is the binding capacity, which explains how well we bind a heme iron with globin protein. That's why we have the word a hemoglobin. Okay. Now again, hemoglobin, it's also amino acids, and as we know, the hemoglobin has 574 amino acids. Okay, which become as a protein on the final stage. The next one after that we consider also a total iron serum. Now, total iron serum, we compare to the other markers just to see it, to give us idea if it's low or high, because we have again, there is no precise number, but it gives us idea whether human body accumulates more non-heme iron, which is the wrong type of iron, or harder utilized to create hemoglobin, versus non-heme, heme versus non-heme iron. So we can start to have idea if the ferritin is low and iron level is high, we know that the non-heme iron become predominant more. But again, this is to our expertise and our interpretation. The next one, it's also when we go to a blood panel. Okay, now blood panel is another one which we use. One of them is hemoglobin. Okay, now it's very important. I'm going to use a term which I don't want anybody to use, but I want you to be familiar. Okay, this is very important for people to understand. When people have insulin resistance, okay, it's also called eventually hyperinsulinemia. Okay, this is a second stage of insulin resistance, which means the body overproduces certain things like hormone insulin to make up with the quantity for the quality. Okay, so now why I'm leading to hemoglobin? Because everybody always look if hemoglobin is low. Well, what if hemoglobin is too high? Well, everybody claps their hands. Well, I wouldn't be clapping because it's a problem too. Now we get in the condition called hyperhemoglobinemia. So it's like insulin resistance has hyperinsulinemia. We have too much hemoglobin. The reason is when you look on the marker which we use called MCV, which is for volume production of hemoglobin and capacity of carrying oxygen, it is disrupted, which means high in hemoglobin, it is almost as bad as too low hemoglobin. So we look for the happy medium. Okay, so this is one of the misconceptions. People see high hemoglobin, they said, oh, I'm good. No, that's actually not. Again, that's an interpretation. The next one, it's also very important, and this is also used by a lot of sport people. It's hematocrit, okay? Hematocrit is very important because for sport people, and this is, I have to be open about it, people who use TRT, okay, of any performance testosterone, they all eventually develop hemochromatosis, which is iron overload second stage, around 350% increase in people who use testosterone, you will have hemochromatosis. And that one is actually very highly used as a hematocrit is the level which what they have to establish. Usually when hematocrit gets to the higher ranges, around 48, 50, that's what actually sport a lot of people, they have to start to have a bloodletting to reduce it. So hematocrit is very important. After the hematocrit, we also have a MCH and MHCH, which is also, without getting technically, it shows you the volume, capacity, performance of red blood cells, but also hemoglobin, okay? So this is just very basic, explanation. And next one, of course, everybody knows it's a platelets level, okay? Platelet, and I explain to people, comes from word plate. It's the plate which the red blood cells, it's formed, okay? Well, if the platelets level are in normal range, we know that the binding capacity between the heme iron and globin protein, it's normal. If it's high, which means the platelets are gonna be too large in general, and they also create very high risk to DVT, which is deep vein thrombosis or blood clotting, okay? Another part, it's also very important, is the width of the cells. The red blood cells should be perfectly rounded. So actually there is one test which shows the width of the cells. So we start to look for irregularity in the shape of the cells. And that's when I have to give the idea about people. There is a condition which very people are very aware of it. It's called sickle cell anemia, okay? And the reason it's called sickle, it comes from the little tool which cuts the grass. It's called the sickle, okay? And it has this funny shape, okay? And that's how the red blood cells start to look, a sickle cell shape instead nice and beautiful rounded cells, okay? So this is the width. We can actually see by the shape of the cells also how well the forming of the bone marrow of red blood cells and hemoglobin happen, okay? And then when we combine all those markers, and there's a couple other markers which we use, we also use very important thing, it's protein S. That's something which recently is very important to test. The reason is protein S is a protein master of coagulation, which means stabilization of blood density, okay? Blood, when it's too dense, creates the very high risk for stroke and blood clotting, and blood which is too thin, it can cause undetected bleeding, which could be also very bad, even fatal, okay? So protein S, it's something which we test to see where is the level of that protein, because that particular protein is the master protein of vitamin K, which is the major coagulant in human blood. So this is when we get together. We also test things like cholesterol and HDL and LDL. And the reason we test the cholesterol just strictly to see what functions of the liver are happening, and also a bile, because bile, this way we can tell if the bile is secreted, because we have a whole new chapter which we already mentioned, a bile, so we start to have idea where it goes to. And also at the same time, going back to insulin, the very first complication of insulin resistance, it's called chronic cholestasis. The very fancy name, it's basically called chronic inflammation of the liver. And if this happens with insulin resistance, every human body who has that condition basically develops non-alcoholic fatty liver, which is around 75% of all liver inflammation condition. So actually it's not from alcohol, but other factors. And one of them, it's iron overload in ferritin in the liver. Okay. So that gives us also idea from insulin how the bile and gallbladder is functioning, because then we can look also on the further test, to see the vitamins like vitamin D, how it's well absorbed, because that gives us idea also how liver in general it's performing. So this is the blood test numbers. It's around 14 of them. We have a couple other ones, and there's going to be available for you, for people to go on website, have those blood work. All these blood works are very common, so no professional, healthcare professional will have any question or any doubts that these are need to be performed. They actually, most of the time, when the professionals see the blood work we provide, they're very happy, and they really actually say that's actually very good combination to do as a general performance based on iron study, because eventually that will affect every single metabolic performance in the body in the long term.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's good to know, like, I know some people do get pushbacks from different doctors and stuff. So if that's the case, then I think it's like we can work around it, right? Like, I know sometimes it does happen, but okay, why don't we dive into, so something that commonly gets asked is like, how do we dose? Like, how do you determine how many glucoferrin you recommend per individual, or let's say like ailment?
The normal dose as a maintenance dose, okay? It's 2 capsules a day. And this goes by guidelines which are established long time ago, but generally guidelines, how much certain minerals we need in the body, okay? So 2 capsules a day, it's just about ideal for everybody. Now, when we have people who have iron dysregulation, okay, and I like to use the term because I don't want to, I already mentioned first time, every iron anemia does not mean iron deficiency. It's just iron deficiency in utilization, regulation, absorption, and distribution of iron. Okay, that's and I'm going to repeat this many, many times when we're going to meet together, because it's very important to people understand this. So when we get to that point, then we start to see with the dosage, okay, if somebody have one of those markers elevated or some of them decreased, we see the need to increase the dose, obviously, because it's a nutraceutical product and therapeutic application. So we actually can determine that this person qualifies for more than regular dose. Okay, this is no different than any medication or any even herbal supplements. When people do it, there is a certain dose for certain amount of conditions. Also, you have to consider genetic predisposition, lifestyle, stress factor, and one thing we don't forget, the size of the person. Okay,
Right.
you're not gonna treat somebody or help somebody 5 feet 2 inches and the same guy who is 6.4, because there will be injustice. Okay, so that's when we do 2 to 4 is general guidelines. Now we do apply higher doses, and this one we actually help professionals to establish the need for particular abnormalities in metabolism or iron metabolism, basically by talking with them, and eventually they all start to know how to actually work with glucoferrin. It's not very difficult. So 2 normal dose, 4 preferable for most of the people. And the reason I say for most of the people tell me sometimes, what if somebody doesn't have a problem? I say, well, when you meet one, please introduce me to that person,
Yeah.
because I would love to meet one. So far, no chances for that one. Okay, so
Yeah.
so this is the guidelines for using of glucoferrin. Now there is also no side effects. There is no side effects. It's completely safe. And Dr. Kristy will talk about the application, the dosage and everything, daily, how to use it and how to, follow the general directions.
I love that. Do you want to jump in now, Kristy?
Sure.
Can we also include bait like 1-year-old, 2-year-olds? Like what do we do there too?
Yeah, Peter, do you want to finish up with the 1, 2-year-olds?
Well, 1 and 2-year-old, because again, I just said the body size.
Yeah.
Of course, 1 and 2-year-old, we will probably start with one. So we, like most of the not medication, but medicine, natural or not natural, they're usually guidelines. And I say, in general, start up to age of 6, that you treat them in the normal doses. So let's say, just put that people, little people, I call them, okay, they're less than 100 pounds. Yes, we're going to give them 1 capsule a day. Now, if you're going to have children who need it more, because you're going to do blood work and they're going to have some of the kids, you will have their iron study maybe, and it happened as bad as some adults, then definitely the professional will establish higher dose. But in generally, to be safe, we will start young kids. One will be completely efficient.
Okay. It's Chris, you have
And
anything else you wanted to throw in there?
Okay. No, that was good. Just as far as using it, so you're using 2 to 4 capsules a daily. So you would take your if you're taking 4 capsules, we prefer divided doses, so 2 twice a day with meals. If you're just taking 2 capsules once a day, take it with your first meal. Just better taken with food, because some people have sugar unstable sugars, so we just like to take it with food. It is safe, no contraindications, safe for pregnant and breastfeeding. In fact, I would recommend it for pregnant and breastfeeding, versus any other prenatal vitamin I would not recommend.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, safe and effective, no contraindications, no drug interactions, and
Yeah. So drug interactions, there isn't. And okay, I know we talked a little bit about other supplements. So I know the goal is to slowly start removing some of the synthetic, like things that a lot of the supplements, a lot of people don't understand that some of these supplements are just made and they're not really what they say they are, right? Like we understand how the processing factor, like these supplements are actually processed and not really like a lot of filler stuff in there. So it's like I mean, just get rid of that stuff, save your money, right?
yeah. Anytime we're feeding a systemic, we are a cascade of biochemical and hormonal reactions. So anytime we are supplementing with cofactors or vitamins, um, or glutathione antioxidants, we are feeding the cascade in the middle of the biochemical reaction, disrupting it, and we will create metabolic dysfunction down the line. It may be symptomatic treatment, we may be feeling better, but we really want to absorb these nutrients from our food, and glucoferrin helps to absorb them.
Oh, I like that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So is there anything that you do highly recommend, like 100% stop using this, stop taking this?
Peter?
Good question. Well, could you be more specific? I really
Well,
don't
like
understand.
because I'm thinking of all the different protein powders and all the different, creatine is like, I mean, creatine's highly studied. It's
Okay,
one of the most.
yeah. Okay, go ahead, finish, but please, yeah.
No,
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 go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, get in there. I think you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Proteins are very important, and everybody start to recognize it more and more. The very important issue is what we get in proteins. We need to get amino acids first, okay, in order to create protein. And creation of protein is done during the translation process from DNA to mRNA. It's called translation, okay, which means we have the code in DNA and we have to have a translator which will create the proteins. Now, the very important part is human body needs 708 amino acids, not one less. Anytime we lack 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever amino acids, our body will fill that void with different type of amino acid. It's like a zipper. Well, if you replace amino acids with the amino acids, which is in a void right now, you're creating a wrong zipper chain reaction in the further mRNA and protein sequencing, which will eventually cause you in genetic dysfunction sooner or later. So using one protein, 3 proteins, 10 proteins, 20 amino acids never work. Now, let me tell you something. If that will work, why we are the most unhealthy stage of humankind right now, all around the world. If those proteins are available for the last 30 years, they've done nothing. Okay? So if somebody says they have protein, creatinine, for instance, it's a one protein. Dr. Kristy just said it's a cascade of the problems. You're going to stick protein somewhere like creatinine, you're going to have temporary improvement, maybe muscle gain, maybe something. But somewhere in the way will cause you a problem because it will start to fit in when the other amino acids should be present. And they are not. They're not available. When we are created in our mother's womb, we are created from 708 amino acids, and they're only available from animal source, period. So any proteins taken, it's not gonna really be sufficient or prevent us from problem. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many health issues right now, including weight and everything else. Now, very even more important part is, in order to create a protein, we have to have 2 major amino acids, sulfur bonded, cysteine and methionine. These are 2 only amino acids in human body which are proteinogenesis involved, which means proteinogenetic, which means it will create and support the further genesis, which is the reproduction and formation of protein. If that doesn't happen, we cannot create those proteins. Those 2, cysteine, methionine, it's involved in every single translation from the book of DNA to the recipe and final execution with mRNA. In the meantime, and this is science, and if somebody tell you it's not true, I would love to hear from them, okay? Those two create protein called menin, and menin also become gene. Menin is the main and only translator and replicator of proteins from DNA to mRNA. Without methionine and cysteine sulfur bonded, it will be always lacking and be dysfunctional. So any other proteins, if you're gonna use for long term, will cause you nothing but problems. Now, you're going to see the trend right now. People add sulfur because they realize sulfur, it is as necessary for life as glycogen and oxygen. Without sulfur, nothing can happen in the body, nothing, and cannot happen protein formation. Without sulfur, no protein, if it's made, let's say, I give you example, one of the proteins when we talk about is menin. Menin has 610 amino acids. 610. You just mentioned creatinine. What is 609?
Right.
You have a zipper. You have a zipper faultiness from the day one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now they have to be sulfur bonded, and then sulfur eventually it becomes transitional into nitrogen and nitric oxide, and that creates the whole sequence of every single protein from the very first thread to the last end of the protein, and it sends to the body to support the gene and all the cells replications. Without it, everything is eventually disrupted. Okay? So this is my answer. Now, glutathione, for instance, without cysteine and methionine cannot be formed. I just start to tell everybody, without sulfur, all supplements they talk about with protein, sulfur added. Sulfur added. Well, let me make a very big statement. Sulfur bonded from mother source. It's bonded the way it was designed to support DNA translation into mRNA. A sulfur added is just blending. It will never work. The other thing is the sulfur added, it's synthetic. It will cause eventually problems.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was good. I feel like every time I get on a call with you, I just learn so much more. Okay, two last little quick questions. So, are there any negative responses that you've heard of? So, I'm going to just be a little bit vulnerable here and state, like, for myself, month one, I noticed a lot of stuff on my lungs. And I know you explained it to me personally, which I was grateful for. But I noticed that I was definitely fighting some stuff out of my body. And then my second cycle along the way, there was a lot happening there that I was in. I knew what was happening and I knew it was good that it was happening. It didn't feel good in the moment. And I was like, this is very painful and stuff like that. So I know that that might be like a negative response. Some people might assume it's negative. I don't think it's negative. I think it was like what my body needed and it was getting rid of the iron. But maybe we want to just like touch on that. And then, yeah, like what happens if you stop taking glucoferrin? Is there any reverse conditions or reverse anything that you see come up?
Okay. The first question I'm going to ask you first to answer me that.
What's that?
I'm going to ask you a question, Christa, because I'm a male.
Okay.
Did you ever have a good time when you have a menstrual cycle?
I've had better ones, but
no, I said, did you ever have a good day?
Oh, no, not really.
Thank you. Rest my case.
Okay. But definitely had worse.
That's all I need to hear. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of them gonna be better, some of them gonna be worse. Okay, that's your body talking.
Right.
Okay, now in general, we have nothing but positive, and all are positive. There are a lot of times when we need to talk with people because there are people who have, for instance, I just experienced somebody who have extremely high exposure to cleaning agents, a person who work with so many chemicals. Well, he felt better, but he started to feel like you have an iron coming with the menstrual cycle. He started to feel like he has some kind of iron coming from his body. Well, you have to remember, when you take iron supplement, did you ever hear person saying they took iron supplement, they felt good?
No,
No.
everybody always says they have a
Everybody's
sore
like, oh,
stomach.
my stomach,
Yeah.
oh my God. Well, you see, now when you have an iron buildup, glucoferrin, because of creates glutathione, the master antioxidant sequester, chelator, and binder, is going to create the proper order of metabolism. It depends how person is overloaded. They may feel different symptoms. Okay. Now, are they going to be bad? Most of the time, they're not. Now, you have to also consider there are people who have a little flu. They feel like they're going to make the whole world thinking they're dying. And there are people who are going to be sick and they're going to say, hey, I just felt great. Okay. So it's a personal perception. Now, if people are going to see sometimes maybe some cramping in the stomach, well, think about when colon has a rust laying in the colon and somebody going to try to take this rust away, you may feel day or two kind of, oh, well, I'm not really good with it. But then eventually the body, it's beautiful. The body will adjust. The body will listen to you. Body will never do more than you can handle. Okay. So that's never going to happen. So there is no really side effects of feeling it. Now, we have always people ask us, it's a milk product. Well, it's a derivative pharmaceutical grade. There is basically no milk left. Okay. So if people are worried about lactose intolerance, drink with water, never have a problem. Okay. So that's another thing. Another thing is our capsules are the best capsules ever made. Okay. Every capsule have very little cellulose. And remember, people cannot break down and digest cellulose. We're not grazers. So that's why I made a capsule. And if people are concerned about it, open the capsule and put the powder in your food or you drink. That's all it takes. No problems. Now, just going to another capsules, just to give pointer, all vegetarian capsules are basically all made of cellulose. Well, ask me a question. How people even absorb that nutrients if they take vegetarian capsules full of cellulose? They cannot even break them down. Okay, so we have an open, you can open, especially with children, you can open the capsules. Okay, now very important to drink water. And when I'm not drink water, it's a glass of water. We're supposed to dilute everything, absorb better. Okay, so water, whatever you take or you eat or you take supplements or medication, always is suggested to drink water. Once you can drink water, you will feel nothing. So in general, there is no really side effects that I can say, oh, you may expect this or that. No, they're going to be maybe something that people notice changes. I would rather refer to them as changes. Okay. And the old saying is in healing. Okay. You have to remember medicine is designed as a suppressor. Okay. Suppress because it works on the symptoms. Natural way of regulating, you actually regulate. And again, a lot of people use word stimulate, detox. These are wrong words. Okay, regulation is a key word, and let your body regulate it. And I tell this to everybody. Remember, your body is smarter than you, okay? So just listen to your body.
We're going to end it right there because that's a good final word, but always an amazing time having you guys here. Dr. Kristy, thank you for joining in and helping out as well. Yeah, I'm excited to share this message. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.